I kind of am thinking that, I don't know, the Rams just tweeted that they're on the clock.
They are on the clock.
Kind of makes me feel like they won't trade back.
We shall see.
I don't know, guys. I think that I would be everyone that I mentioned and who you mentioned, I think makes a lot of sense. If they pick anybody else, um, I might be a little surprised.
Yeah, I did a video on Besh. I think he is a prototypical Rams receiver, kind of a pseudo, tight end, smooth mover, really fluid athlete. Separation skills are great. Yak ability, blocker, can go up and high point the football. I could also see Io Manor, by the way, even though I do have issues with some drops with his, but really smart, conscientious football player, inside outside versatility. I think with Besh, you're getting like a Juju Smith-Schuster type. And I think if they go this direction, this just feels like a Rams pick. But also,
So it's in. It's
oh,
in. The Rams took tight end Terrance Ferguson out of Oregon.
okay, yeah. I would rather trade it down. I don't love the pick there, but he's a good player. Makes plays after the catch, which, good lord, the Rams need that from a tight end. If you're throwing you know, a bootleg to a tight end, it's not just for show. Like, I don't want you getting 2 yards out of it. I think like with Ferguson, I feel like this is a bit of a reach, and I think they could have traded down, but they clearly like the player a lot. But yeah, I think I don't know. I really don't love this pick, if I'm being honest. What are your thoughts, Alexis?
I think this is early for him. This
I
is
think it's very early.
I think it's very early. I had him as like a late third, early fourth round pick. Um, and if and you know, I was wanting a tight end in that range, but I was wanting Mitchell Evans. I thought made more sense and is a better prospect in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, pulling up some notes. I'm gonna go pull up some notes on Terrance Ferguson. Player comp. So I think it's fair to say he's probably like a slot receiving tight end.
Which I think that was
Um,
the direction that they were looking in. So I think
yeah,
that makes
so
sense.
the fit kind of makes sense. I think, he's got good size. I think that he's a relatively good route runner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's got good hands, and I think, in the red zone, I think he's fairly efficient. So, it's not that it's that it's like a total like this makes zero sense. I mean, I think positionally this makes a lot of sense. I just think
Yeah.
if this was your guy, I think you could have waited till much later probably to take him. And I think based on all the other tight ends available, I mean, Elijah Ario, um, I love, Mitchell Evans, I love Harold Fannin Jr. I would have, taken.
One thing I
Um,
will say, by the way, with Terrence Ferguson is he is a crazy good athlete. I think you do have a starter here. So I want to make that very clear. I don't love the pick based on who I would have gone with. My shadow selection would have been Jack Besh. But
yeah.
what I will say is this guy I had a third round grade on. So it's not like it's early, but it's not like the worst thing ever. And this is somebody that was pretty much the most athletic tight end at the combine. He actually had a 39-inch vertical jump. He had a 1.55 10-yard split, a 4.63 40-yard dash. So there are some things to like here. It's not just the measurables, Alexis. I mean, you are getting somebody. I know they did a lot of work on Bo Nix, so I'm sure that this is a guy that caught their eye last year. But, this is a guy that really steps up in the clutch. He made some big time plays. He's a smart route runner, can manipulate coverage, does a nice job with the route pacing, really good after the catch. He's versatile. You could use him as an H-back. You could use him as a slot. You can flex him out wide. I just feel like the way they'll probably use him is they'll keep Higbee in line and they'll probably just kind of rotate him between maybe getting him involved as an H-back, using him as a flex, using him in the slot, maybe putting him out wide. I think he's got a pretty big catch radius. He's going to help the red zone team that was 22nd in red zone efficiency last year. Really good receiver, though. So the issue with him, you don't see the quick twitch maybe of some of the other tight ends. The blocking technique has to be better. He is not the best blocker. From a route running perspective, there are some nuanced things that he needs to work on. The route tree isn't fully developed, but I think this is a good player. Is he going to be a guy that goes up and high points the football and be a contested catch guy? No, I think he's in a similar vein as, he's a lot, he's maybe not considered as good as him, but he's in a similar vein to Colston Loveland, a guy who, he's big and he's athletic, but he's not a guy that's going to go up and win that 50-50 ball. He's more of a tight end that's going to win, creating space and creating separation. And, I think with Matthew Stafford's improvisational ability, it makes sense. It does. So I give this pick a B. I would have gone with Harold Fan Jr. at tight end over him, but again, this is their guy. And so while initially, kind of a disappointment, in that I had a different player in mind and you had a different player in mind, I owe it to everybody watching to give some actual analysis. And, hopefully I did that for you.
Yeah, and real quick, I have more on that, but the Cardinals took Will Johnson with the next pick,
Gotcha.
by the way. So
Yeah.
Will Johnson is off the board. And yeah, I think with Terrance Ferguson, like this pick I think is gonna grow on me. I think what it is about this pick, and by the way, Michael Brockers announced it. I don't know if anyone is watching the draft, but I have a special place in my heart for Michael Brockers, and he's doing the Rams picks tonight. So shout out to Michael Brockers. Is this, I think what Jake said is correct. This was clearly a guy that the Rams really wanted. This is early for him. But if this is your guy, and listen, I think that the Rams also, we know that they really like Mason Taylor, and Mason Taylor went early, so you're not going to get him. So I think the Rams then made a choice and said, you know what, we're going to go get the other tight end that we really like, regardless if we're taking him higher, than he's projected or not. I think that he would have been there later, but it doesn't, I don't think it matters to a team if it's a guy that they really, really like. And something about Terrance Ferguson is the athletic ability is just so like insane with him that all of this other stuff that I think that, he's really raw on, and maybe the blocking, kind of like you mentioned, and maybe some route running stuff, he can work on that. But he has a lot of potential. And I think, you're still going to have Tyler Higbee in there, right? You're still, I do think that we need to trade Parkinson. Our tight end room is now like a little full, but yeah, I think this Ferguson pick, like I said, I think it's early, but I think that it's gonna pay off and it's gonna grow on a lot of us. I think that we just all need a minute to kind of like, I just really would have liked Elijah Ario. I think I'm higher on Elijah than you are. I just really like him.
You are.
I also really liked Mason
Yeah.
Taylor, and I kind of deluded myself that maybe Mason Taylor would be there at 46, which might have been a little delusional.
I had Harold Fan Jr. as my second tight end, Arroyo as my sixth, Gunnar Helm as my fifth, and I had Terrance Ferguson as my eighth tight end, Mitchell Evans at 9. So, yeah, I mean, like, personally for me, when I came, but then again, they do so much work as well, and I think the big thing here is, and this is actually the point I'll make before I end this clip, because I know I actually remembered to record this.
Wow.
I know, right? We're stepping up, and the audio's working, unlike last time. The big
dream.
thing here, the big takeaway I want you guys to remember, and we're going to read super chats and all that soon, but the big thing I want you to remember here is that back when the Rams were in St. Louis, I'm not talking about the greatest show on turf, I'm talking about the SoSar Rams. These type of picks would not pan out. They would not. But I trust this organization. So while I have a guy that I prefer more, the margin for error I don't think is as slim. See, I felt like the Rams in the SoSar era had to draft really good football players that would transcend a system that they were in. Now I feel like the Rams can kind of take whoever they want and they're just going to make it work. And they've been doing that the last 2 years on a level that no one else is even close. That is my closing argument about why I don't have an issue with Ferguson. I had other players. I think Fannin Jr., the most productive tight end and the guy that generated the most missed tackles of any tight end in the country, I thought he made more sense. But if you think I think Ferguson is going to be a bad player in this offense, you're out your damn mind.
Yeah, I think, and by the